You apply to the CIA. No interview, no phone call, just silence. 3 months later, an email arrives. One line. We'd like to speak with you. That's it. That's how it starts. What you don't know is that less than 1% of everyone who applies will ever wear a badge. The rest? Rejected. Sometimes without ever knowing why. This is what happens to you at every level until only one version of you is left standing. The CIA doesn't recruit like other agencies. There's no job fair, no LinkedIn post. In most cases, you find them. Through an application buried on a government site most people never look at twice. Every year, tens of thousands apply for the Clandestine Service, the CIA's operations arm, where officers work undercover, run sources, and gather intelligence in the field. Of those tens of thousands, only a small fraction will ever get a callback. And getting a callback isn't an offer. It's an invitation to the hardest evaluation process in the U.S. government, one built to break you down piece by piece until they know exactly who you are. There are 6 stages between you and that badge. Most people don't make it past stage 2. You're about to see all 6. Stage 1, application and screening. You submit your application, resume, personal statement, references. Everything looks normal, like any other job posting. Except it isn't. Buried in the fine print is a requirement most applicants skip past without a second thought. You must be a U.S. citizen, and so must your immediate family. No dual loyalties, no foreign ties that can't be explained. The CIA isn't just hiring you, they're evaluating everyone connected to you before they've even read your resume properly. If you clear that filter, your application lands in a queue, not a person's inbox, a queue, reviewed alongside thousands of others competing for the same handful of seats. Weeks pass, sometimes months. Most applicants never hear back at all. No rejection letter, no explanation, just silence. A silence that for the CIA is intentional. They want to see who keeps waiting and who moves on. If you're one of the few who gets a response, it isn't a yes. It's a request for a phone screening. A short, almost casual-sounding call where a recruiter asks about your background, your motivations, and why you want a job you can never talk about publicly. This call is deceptively simple. Recruiters are trained to listen for inconsistencies, small contradictions between what you say and what's on paper. One wrong detail, one story that doesn't quite line up, and your file gets quietly closed. Survive the call, and you move to the next filter, a formal review of your education, your work history, and your online footprint. By the end of stage 1, out of every 100 people who applied, fewer than 10 are still in the process, and the CIA hasn't even met you in person yet. Stage 2. Psychological testing. You've survived the silence. Now the CIA wants inside your head. You're flown, at your own arrangement, sometimes without even knowing the exact location until the last moment, to a facility for a full day of psychological evaluation. No laptops, no phones, just you, a proctor, and hundreds of questions. The written test alone can run past 500 questions, some repeated in different forms just to see if your answers stay consistent. Do you feel controlled by outside forces? Have you ever wanted to hurt someone in authority? Do you often feel like people are talking about you? The questions circle the same themes again and again. Stability, impulse control, paranoia, deception, looking for the smallest crack. Then comes the interview. A CIA psychologist sits across from you, and for the next 90 minutes, they ask about your childhood, your relationships, your failures. Not because they care, because trauma and instability are liabilities in the field. An officer who breaks under personal pressure is an officer who compromises the mission. This isn't a pass or fail test in the traditional sense. There's no single wrong answer. What disqualifies you is inconsistency, a personality that looks different on paper than it does in the room. Some candidates who seem perfectly calm collapse under this stage. The isolation, the repetition, The feeling of being studied rather than spoken to, it wears people down in ways they don't expect. By the end of stage 2, the number that started at 100 is now down to around 5. You haven't touched a weapon, you haven't left the country, and already most people who wanted this job are gone. Stage 3, background investigation. This is where your entire life gets taken apart. Federal investigators don't just check your criminal record. They talk to your neighbors, your college roommates, your ex-partners. People from your past you haven't spoken to in 10 years suddenly get a knock on the door from someone flashing a government badge, asking what kind of person you really are. Every address you've lived at since childhood gets verified. Every job you've ever held gets confirmed with former employers. Not just did they work here, but how did they handle pressure? Did they ever lie? Were they ever a problem? Your finances are pulled apart too. Debt, unpaid loans, unusual spending patterns, gambling. Anything that could make you vulnerable to blackmail or bribery is a red flag. The CIA isn't just asking, are you a good person? They're asking, can a foreign intelligence service compromise you? Foreign contacts get special attention. A study abroad friend, a foreign relative, even old social media messages to someone overseas. All of it gets reviewed and sometimes has to be explained in writing under oath. This process can take 6 months to a year, not weeks, not a background check you forget about, an entire year of your life where investigators are quietly building a file on everyone who has ever known you. Some candidates fail here, not because of anything criminal, but because of inconsistency again. A story you told the recruiter doesn't match what your old coworker remembers. And that's enough. By the end of stage 3, the number is down from 5 to roughly 2 or 3. You are now one of the most scrutinized private citizens in the country, and you still don't have the job. Stage 4, the polygraph. Nothing about this stage is casual. You're led into a small, quiet room. A machine is strapped to your chest, your fingers, your arm. And for the next several hours, you will be asked the same handful of questions, over and over, in different orders, different phrasing, until there's nowhere left to hide. Have you ever committed a serious crime you haven't disclosed? Have you ever had unauthorized contact with a foreign intelligence service? Have you ever used illegal drugs beyond what you admitted on your application? The examiner isn't just watching the machine. They're watching you, your breathing, your hesitation, the half-second pause before you answer. Polygraphs are controversial in courtrooms because they aren't perfectly reliable. But inside the CIA, they're treated as one of the most important filters in the entire process. This is also the stage where people who lied earlier in the process get caught. Maybe you didn't disclose a drug experiment from college. Maybe you left out a relationship the background investigators missed. The polygraph has a way of surfacing exactly what you tried to bury. Sessions can run 4 to 6 hours. Some candidates are called back for a second polygraph months later, asked the same questions again, just to see if the story changes. There's a psychological toll to this stage that people don't talk about. Being disbelieved repeatedly by a machine and a stranger for hours. Even honest candidates describe leaving this room mentally exhausted, second-guessing memories they were sure of an hour earlier. By the end of stage 4, the number drops again, from 2 or 3 down to essentially 1. One person out of every 100 who applied, and they still haven't finished. Stage 5. Medical and physical evaluation. By now, you're the last one standing. But the CIA still isn't done. You go through a full medical examination, blood work, vision, hearing, cardiovascular health, and a review of your complete medical history. This isn't about being an elite athlete. Clandestine service officers don't need to run sub-5-minute miles. What they need is a body that won't fail them on deployment, in a country with no nearby hospital, no backup, and no way home if something goes wrong. Any undisclosed condition, A heart irregularity, a mental health diagnosis left off the paperwork, even certain long-term medications can disqualify you at this stage, regardless of how well you performed everywhere else. Then comes the psychiatric medical review, separate from the earlier psychological interview. A CIA physician evaluates whether you're fit not just to pass training, but to handle prolonged isolation, high-stress environments, and the reality of operating without support for extended periods. This is also where your file is checked one final time against everything gathered in the previous 4 stages. The application, the psychological testing, the background investigation, the polygraph. Doctors, psychologists, and security officers compare notes, looking for anything that doesn't add up across the entire process. If everything clears, you're not handed a badge yet. You're handed something else, a conditional offer, contingent on completing training that hasn't even started. The number is still 1, but 1 doesn't mean safe. The hardest stage is still ahead of you. You've made it through 5 stages that most people never even attempt. Now, you arrive at a secluded training facility in rural Virginia. One so classified, the CIA has never officially confirmed its location. Former trainees call it simply the farm. This is where the conditional offer becomes real. Or it quietly falls apart. Training here runs for roughly a year, and it's unlike anything you've experienced in the previous stages. This isn't about answering questions correctly anymore. It's about performing under pressure, in real time, with no script. You're trained in tradecraft, the actual skills of espionage, surveillance and counter-surveillance, learning to detect if you're being followed, and how to lose a tail through crowded streets without ever looking like you're trying. Recruitment simulations, where instructors play foreign assets and you have to convince a stranger to betray their own country. Reading their hesitation, their fear, knowing one wrong word ends the exercise. You're trained in clandestine communication, dead drops, coded messages, meeting handlers in ways that leave no trace. You learn to build and maintain a cover identity so convincing that even people who know you well wouldn't suspect a thing. Physical training is real, but it isn't about being the strongest in the room. It's about enduring stress for extended periods, sleep deprivation exercises, mock interrogations designed to disorient you, high-pressure scenarios built specifically to make you crack, so instructors can see exactly how you behave when you think no one's watching closely enough to catch it. Some candidates who made it through 5 brutal stages of screening still wash out here. Not because they're incapable, but because the pressure of sustained real-world deception finally reveals something the psychologists and polygraphs couldn't find. Every exercise is graded. Every mistake is logged. There is no good enough. There is only ready or not ready. And the instructors decide which one you are. Near the end, there's a final field exercise, a multi-day operation combining everything you've learned, run as if it were real, because in every way that matters to your evaluators, it is. If you pass, there's no ceremony with cameras, no announcement, no public record, just a quiet confirmation. You are now a clandestine service officer of the Central Intelligence Agency. Out of the tens of thousands who applied the year you did, you are one of a tiny handful who made it through every single stage. But here's what nobody tells you at the beginning. Passing isn't the finish line. It's the start of a career where you can never fully explain what you do to the people you love. Your family will know you work for the government. That's it. No job title you can share at a dinner party. No LinkedIn post when you get promoted. Your own parents may go their entire lives never knowing what you actually do. And you'll never be able to tell them. Not because you don't want to, but because you legally can't. Some officers spend decades under a cover identity so deep that even close friends only know a version of them that isn't fully real. Relationships end over this. Marriages struggle under the weight of secrets that can never be shared, not even in private, not even after retirement. And the danger doesn't stop once training ends. Officers are deployed to places where a single mistake, A blown cover, a compromised source, a moment of hesitation can end a career or end a life. There is no 911 to call in some of these postings, no embassy nearby, no backup. So why do people still do it? Ask any officer who made it through all 6 stages, and most give some version of the same answer. It isn't about the job title. It's about being trusted with something almost no one else ever will be. Out of everyone who started this process with you, you are the one still standing. Not because you were the strongest, or the smartest, or the most fearless. You made it because at every single stage, when the silence came, when the questions repeated, when the pressure was designed to break you, you didn't give them a reason to send you home. That's the CIA's selection process. 6 stages. 1 person out of 100. Would you have made it?